Welcome to dedoc, welcome to our sixth, I think, ATTD dedoc Symposium, once again in Barcelona, because we've been here before a couple of years. It's great to see so many dedoc voices here. It's great to see so many familiar faces and new faces. Thank you for showing up. My name is Bastian Haug. I am the founder of dedoc. dedoc initially stood for the German chapter, DE, Deutschland, of the Diabetes Online community. It is a community of people living with diabetes, and we run the largest scholarship program in the world for diabetes advocates to attend conferences like these, like EASD, ISPAD, the German, the British Diabetes Conference, ADA in the US, and others. And we will talk a little bit more about that in a minute. The dedoc Symposia, when we started this a couple of years ago, almost a decade ago now, were quite new in that we managed to bring people with lived experience to scientific conferences, which, if you remember and scroll back in time 10 years, was rather unheard of and very unusual. Maybe there was a singular person living with diabetes as a small guest at a symposium or session, but we were the first to bring fully autonomous symposia conducted by a community of people with diabetes, with people of diabetes, to these scientific sessions. And that's where the tagline comes from: what we, people living with, wish you, some of you healthcare providers, medtech, pharma, what we wish you knew and why. The idea was turning the direction 180 degrees. I see Maren and Amin smiling. They were early parts of Team dedoc, and they remember those brainstormings. Thanks for the smiles. We still do it the same way, but over time the dedoc Symposia have evolved to be a bit more topical and have the different presentations line up. So here at ATTD, some of what you will hear in a few moments will of course be geared to the topic of this conference, diabetes and technology, but always with a lived experience and community focus. Our first speaker to give a short word of welcome is supposed to be Tadej Bartolino, the president of ATTD. He just sent me a WhatsApp. He is still chairing a different session. He says, "I will run the minute we finish, hope to catch you." So we will be waiting for Tadej. As soon as I see him run through the doors, we will loop him in, but he is still chairing a session right now. So without further ado, instead of the words of welcome that we will hopefully hear later, I would like to talk a little bit about the dedoc voices. These are the recipients of the dedoc scholarship. We started this, dedoc got incorporated in 2015. We started thinking about bringing people with diabetes to scientific conferences in 2017, and for the first 2 years heard very clear, this is not possible. This is for HCPs, for prescribers, and for technology or pharma company representatives only. But then it started to get rolling in 2018-19, and since then we have been living a tradition of running not only a dedoc Symposium, but bringing up to 25 people living with diabetes and another 25 following us virtually right now from around the world to these conferences. We've done more than 30 so far. We've given close to 500 scholarships over the last years, and we are very, very happy that we have been able to lead to this paradigm shift in the context of patient centricity, that it is now kind of usual, I hope, for all of you to see the lived experience perspective present here. And we have a wonderful dedoc voice book that we produce every time. I hold it here, you can see it there. The most important part is that it contains small bios of every single one who is here on an in-person or virtual scholarship with their social media handles, so you can find them. But to make it even easier, I would like to ask all the dedoc voices in the room to quickly stand up, turn around, and wave, so that those of you here who are visiting can see some of the faces. Great to see you. You will be able to see us all throughout these next couple of days, and if you want to have more in-depth conversations and exchange, then please find us at the dedoc booth in the exhibition hall, booth 18B. Small booth, but lots of buzz many people. A last thank you goes to our partners and sponsors. Medtronic and Dexcom are supporting this ATTD edition. The others, Breakthrough T1D, Sanofi, Tandem, and Vertex, have supported us last year and will continue to do so in the future. Others sometimes come, sometimes go. Thank you to everyone who is making this possible. The dedoc scholarship provides travel assistance. We book the hotels, the access, the meals during the time to make it possible, even for people from low-income countries as far away as India and Pakistan, or Tanzania, Liberia, Zimbabwe, Uganda, to join us around these conferences around the world. The dedoc Symposium today will feature 4 speakers. 3 of them you already see here. We will get to that in a minute. We will start with Didier from Mauritius, then have Ines from Croatia present, and Harry from the UK. We will also be joined by Izidian. He's from Gaza City proper, and as you can imagine, it was impossible to get him here. We got him as far, or he got as far as Cairo, Egypt, through the Rafah crossing, but we couldn't make it possible for him to get here and back, whatever you call home now, safely. He has, however, sent a video. So this is our lineup for today. More about that in a short moment. Can we move to the next presentation? Because there is one thing sliding in between the proper dedoc Symposium that we are doing before we start, and I would like to welcome Taylor Appleton Lawrence to join me here at the lectern. Taylor, please join. Yes. Some of you may know this guy. Taylor is a street artist, quite a known artist in the US, living in New York. When I visited him for the first time, he showed me pieces of his work in the subway, on a New York City garbage or food truck, in all crazy locations. And he has been our artist in residence in the 3rd year now. And before we talk about that, Taylor, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you guys for coming. It's so nice to see so many familiar faces and new faces. I am Taylor Lawrence. I go by Appleton, my artist name, my grandmother's maiden name. Like many of us out there, I'm a type 1 diabetic, was diagnosed at 6 years old. And when I say diagnose, I mean I went into a DKA coma with sugars running into the thousands. Sent home from a doctor days earlier with just the casual diagnosis of the flu and the common cold. But somehow he couldn't speak to the sudden weight loss. Days later, after that diagnosis, I would go into a coma. My mother would rush me to the hospital. Be very lucky to wake up in her arms. I had a sister before I was born who didn't make it in my mother's arms after the same diagnosis. We all know that happens today still. Diabetes masquerading as the common cold, diabetes masquerading as the flu, diabetes in disguise. Still happens today, where unawareness, misinformed people, and stigmas prevent people from recognizing the gravity of diabetes mentally, physically, and financially, and hoping to end these stigmas that have corrupted so many young and old people with a sense of shame, guilt about diabetes, never winning. I couldn't be more emphatic about language matters, how people talk to people, and how children subconsciously pick up all this stuff. I was actually very lucky as a child to not experience too much stigma until later. And shockingly, as a 16-year-old kid, my friend and I talked about getting a driver's license, and we were all excited about learning to drive. And my friend's mother overheard us talking, and she knew my condition and said, "Oh, you can't drive." And you can imagine how we all just said it inside. Are you kidding me? what are you talking about? She said, well, I don't want to worry about you and Jack in a car because you could have seizures. And I was like, how the hell does she know all this? And that moment on, I started looking at myself very differently, sort of questioning myself, and I never had that. And for children who experience that any earlier, it leads to all sorts of, person in the mirror judgments that affect how you approach friends, whether you're social or not. It really can be quite a debilitating thing that leads to mental illness. This self-judgment. You don't go out. Sometimes you don't leave the house because you don't want to have a reaction. You don't want to have a low in public. So it's a heavy, heavy thing that I'm so glad we're addressing now. I'm really glad to have been part of all this and dedoc for all these many years. Looking forward to going to Jaipur and speaking about end diabetes stigma, because people who have casual opinions about it have no idea the knapsack of rocks we carry around daily. And on top of that, with people with a skewed view of who you are and how you may perform your job or life is unbearable. So I'm so happy to be part of this, express the feelings of where I come from. And I will say this, one stigma that bothers me the most is that diabetics can't high five because of CGMs or something else or shots. So I ask everybody, high five to end diabetes stigma. I hope to see a bunch around here.
Thank you, Taylor, and you already made the transition to why you are here today. As you may have heard and seen on social media and on the website, there is a major summit coming up, the first ever global summit to end diabetes stigma. It is happening in Jaipur in India in less than 3 weeks. Many of dedoc voices will be there, our team will be there, and amazing researchers dealing with stigma and diabetes will be there, and quite a few artists from around the world, and of course, this guy. And here's another tradition that some of you may know. Taylor has been, as I said, our artist in residence. He has been so kind to, for the first time at EASD 2024 in Madrid, in this country, to donate a piece to honor EASD for their 60th birthday on the occasion of them having allowed the presence of dedoc voices and dedoc in this symposium to take place for years in a row at their conference. And he created a piece. Just after that, the president of ISPAD came up and said, hey, we're celebrating 50 years in a couple of weeks. How about, and he did it again. And then Peter Schwartz, president of the International Diabetes Federation, saw that in Lisbon and said, oh, we're doing 75 years of IDF next year. And, well, I asked you again. We've done it for ADA for their 85th session last year. And, well, you see the problem. It is ATTD. It is number 19. So that may have to wait until next year. I will ask you again. But because Taylor is a person living with diabetes, focusing very much on advocacy through art and on the topic of stigma specifically, but not only amongst children, he agreed to do something else and create a dedicated piece for this global summit to end diabetes stigma. We ask you to visit the website, enddiabetesstigma.org, sign the pledge. I know some of you, I see some, will be in India in 2-3 weeks. But most important, we decided to kick off the promotion for the summit right now, right here at ATTD, and show your work.
Would you bring up this piece?
That is the original. Taylor.
Hey. Thank you for your kind applause. And when Bastian says we asked him, it was my absolute pleasure, for sure. I can't stop making art, and I like to make art about diabetes awareness for all of us, all the way through, not just the misinformed, but to let other diabetics know we're a gang, we're a team, we're a global community. And part of my artwork and street art is sort of a gang symbol for a type 1 out in the wild to feel less alone when they see a strange insulin bottle on the side of a building. This piece here is about the sunflower and the lanyards that people wear at airports in Europe and how vital they are and what an amazing thing that people silently are recognized as having a condition at the airport and people seek out just to ask if they're okay. It's a very wonderful thing. I would hope it takes traction in the United States. It is the pathway to end stigma. The sunflowers represent so many things, but they are here bright to stand up for the sun and stand up for the diabetics. There's always a shadow of a diabetic, of being another person, life behind it. I'm very happy, very thrilled with this piece. It means a lot to me, and I'm looking forward to it, traveling to Jaipur and finding a home somewhere. So thank you, guys.
So the sunflower lanyard, for those of you who are not aware, was created at Gatwick Airport years ago to show that if you wear it and you have a condition that is not visible, it initially came from the mental health field. So if you had autism or fear of being in large crowds, anything that is limiting or maybe limiting you or stressing you out, if you wear this at many airports and train stations in Europe, then the staff is trained to recognize these sunflowers and take you through the priority lane, make sure that you're safe without asking any questions, without any prejudice, without any stigma. So when we first started talking about the Global Summit to End Diabetes Stigma, the Stigma Summit, and how to visualize the idea of stigma being visible, the idea of a disease like diabetes being not visible, but being taken care of and working towards a stigma-free world. This came to mind, the sunflower lanyard. It is the inspiration behind this amazing piece of art. And Taylor, you just said you had not seen that before we talked about it, so maybe in the New York airport you still have some training to do. This is from Berlin Airport. This is the one I traveled on to here, and I want you to have this.
Thank you, bud.
For safe travels to India and back for the Global Summit. And the last thing you can do to support us is spread the word about the Global Summit. A lot of it will be happening there. There will be lots of social media activity. And if you like Taylor's piece, you can come and find it here at our booth in the exhibition hall for the next couple of days, 18B. You can come to India and see it there, or you can place a bid and auction on it. The successful bid will be able to either take this home from India or get it shipped to their home. And all proceeds from this auction, as always, go to a good cause. It has been Life for a Child in the past couple of years, and this year we decided that on-site in India, profits will go to a project coming out of the Global Summit to provide some seed funding. So thank you for joining, and Taylor, thank you for donating yet another piece for the first ever Global Summit this time.
Thank you, guys.
This is enough of words of welcome and introductions. We now start with the official dedoc Symposium, and it is my great honor to announce Didier Jean-Pierre from Mauritius. He will take off with a presentation on his foundation and a digital solution that they are in the process of creating to help life. Oh, sorry, that is coming the first. I was looking at the speakers, I'm sorry. Before we get to the first speaker, my bad. I said in the beginning that our initially planned first speaker was not able to come. It is Ezedian Ralalini from Gaza City. He was diagnosed in 21. He survived the war until now and made it out to Egypt, and we really, really, really were hoping to get him here, a person that has lived with diabetes throughout the siege and throughout these horrible last years. He got out to Cairo. We couldn't get him here. So for the first time, we're making an exception. He has sent us a video. It is a bit rough, but we wanted to be able to share his voice, share his story. So we will start with that and then head over to our first real speaker of the day. We'll now start the video of Ezedian.
Hello everybody, my name is Azadin Galain. I'm from Gaza, Palestine. I'm living with diabetes for 5 years, and I joined today remotely because unfortunately I couldn't obtain the visa. So I hope in near future I can meet you in person. And today I will share my story living with diabetes during the Gaza war. The war began in October 2023. The first thing I did was try to secure enough insulin for 3 months. It was extremely difficult because most of pharmacies had closed their door due to the war, and there was a massive rush of people trying to stick pick insulin. After a great struggle, I managed to get a supply for 2 months. There was no luxury of health food or following a strict diet. I faced a new challenge, surviving on an irregular and unhealthy life. We were forced to leave our home and went to my sister's house because more safer than my house. About 200 people were living there. This is brought a new challenges because the difficulty of using the bathroom, the small amount of food compared to the number of people, the lack of water, no electricity, which meant a constant fear of the medicine spoiling. I also faced a new challenges of hiding my diabetes from these people because many of these people have a misconception about the diabetes. So they viewed any person have diabetes, he is an unable person, an abnormal person. It is so difficult to me. So I preferred not to tell anybody about my diabetes in this period. I was no longer living normal life in terms of sleep, food, the fear of pumping, and the challenge of disease itself. After a month of war and consuming a half of my stored insulin, I rushed to get more, but unfortunately it was so difficult because a lot of pharmacies and the clinics are destroyed by the bombing. I could only obtain a very small amount of insulins, and I forced to change my types of insulins because my types is not available. I had no way to monitor my blood sugars because my glucometer became useless with no testing strips. So I was forced to manage my conditions blindly. This was so dangerous and difficult. Sometimes I wouldn't feel about the hypo or the hyper, and this is so difficult to me. After weeks, we didn't find any human food, so we forced to eat an animal food. And each person's daily shares was only about 20 grams of bread. I obtain a little amount of dates and also some honey when I feel a drop. Due to these harsh conditions, my weight dropped from 87 kilograms to 68 kilograms, and I forced to reduce my doses from lactose like lactose from 28 units to 10 units, and Novorapid from 18 units to 7 units. After weeks, my insulin supply ran out. I had only one fast-acting insulin bin left. This is a real danger and real fear. I dealt with this crisis by using insulin only once a day. For the rest of the day, I would eat a single date and move as little as I can. I dealt with this crisis by using insulin once a day. For the rest of the day, I would eat a single date and move as little as possible. 2 weeks later, the supply was gone, and only one dose is remaining. By luck, I saw a paramedic at the place where I volunteered. He had 2 insulin pens, and I went to him and asked him to give me 1 pen. He told me that these pens for my son, and I will give you 1 pen. So he didn't give me just insulin, he gave me a new life. Thank you a lot. Through this difficult time, my father did in my arms. He did because he was so hungry, so fear. I didn't forget this difficult time, truly. After arriving in Egypt, I volunteered with the Insulin for Life Foundation to help get insulin into Gaza Strip, and we failed to get the insulin into the Gaza Strip. So I feel so sad about this condition. I feel so sad about all of patients of type 1 diabetes and type 2 diabetes in Gaza Strip now. I currently live in Egypt now, and my main goal is to keep up and see the last updates of diabetes care. And I really hope to be able to use the modern technologies such as CGMS sensors and the insulin pumps, which I have never had the chance to use. I am currently seeking a scholarship, hoping that one day I can travel, continue my studies, and benefit from the modern technologies that every diabetic patient deserves. Years have passed. I didn't become stronger like a hero, but I became Diva. I didn't defeat the pain, but I learned how to live with it. This is not just a story. This is a real strong story, a human story for a person who's lived in many wars in the same time. I hope no one ever has to live through these moments. Insulin, not just a treatment. It is a life. It is a right for every person living with diabetes. Thank you all for your listening. Thank you, dedoc, to give me a big chance to share my story, and see you soon in person. Goodbye.
So, is this working? Yes? Ah, now it is. Okay, good. So, I'll be looking at the camera. Zidian, I hope you can watch this live right now. If you're listening, if you're watching from Cairo, Egypt, where fortunately you managed to get out of Gaza, we are very sorry for your loss. We would have been very happy to be able to bring you here in person to meet other people and engage more. And our DDoC's deepest sympathies and respect, especially for you, just days after you made it out and barely survived. I want to raise the audience's attention to Zidian barely made it out. We had several phone calls. I'm not at liberty to say how exactly. He is safe. He is in Cairo. As far as I understand, his sister is still in the Gaza Strip. Parts of his family is. His father, as you heard, died in his arms of starvation. One of the first things this guy did was get in touch with Insulin for Life, not to secure resources for him, but remembering the son of the paramedic that gave him one of only 2 remaining insulin pens, and trying to get insulin into the Gaza siege strip during the war. We have been in touch as DDoC with Insulin for Life. So far, most of these efforts have been unsuccessful. And we know there is people living with diabetes still in Gaza amongst those formerly 2 million people. And they may not have died of bombs, but they may be dying as we're sitting here. I will leave it at that, but I would like to thank Zidian for sending us a video, and I will leave you with that. We will now come to our first real speaker here in Barcelona, Didier from Mauritius. Didier, you will introduce yourself and you will talk about a community digital solution that you, together with your colleagues in Mauritius, has developed. So please go ahead. Thank you for joining us.
It's difficult to speak after what we've seen. I was expecting to be shocked, to feel that pain that he went through. And in prevision of that, I just wrote 2 sentences just to remind us that being in a country at war is not something easy for anyone, but being in a country at war without insulin, without the proper conditions to be able to live, is just impossible. And yet he survived for that. And thank you, Ezedian, for your words that remind us that we are lucky. We are really lucky to be able to have the things that we need, even not in large quantities, even not the latest technologies, but at least we have things that can ensure that we are living, our children are living today. Thank you. So, I'm Didier Jean-Pierre from Mauritius. I'm the father of a 22-year-old who has been diagnosed when he was 13 months old. And I've created an organization called T1 Diams. That's a long word that's a short word for type 1 diabetes mellitus support. But in fact, it means small diamonds because we believe that our children are small diamonds and we want them to shine. So, let me get back to my presentation so that I don't mix up things now, because otherwise I won't do the 7 minutes. Because long before innovation, devices, and algorithms, diabetes management begins with the person living with the condition. Often with waking up, calculating before even being fully awake. With looking at a meal and asking a question that most people never have to ask. Is it worth the risk? I will walk you through now my organization's community-led MVP approach to reduce cognitive burden in carbohydrate counting. During our diabetes camps and support groups, we ask our beneficiaries a very simple question. If you had a magic wand, apart from being cured, what would you change in your life or your treatment? We remove the cure from the conversation because at that time it was not even realistic. And the answers were striking. I want to know how much insulin to take when I eat. I don't want to guess and then go low. I just want to know whether I'm giving the right amount. No one actually asked for artificial intelligence, disruption, or digital ecosystems. They asked for clarity. For them, food was never just food. It was a decision with consequences. Every plate carried mathematics, every snack carried uncertainty, every mistake carried guilt. And when you live with that 3, 4, 5 times a day, the burden accumulates. But we couldn't rely on anecdotes. Our team conducted a study exploring the psychosocial burden of carbohydrate counting in Mauritius. What we found confirmed what families had been living silently. Carbohydrate counting was clinically essential, but psychologically exhausting. More than half of the participants described it as emotionally draining. They spoke about mental fatigue from constant calculations, fear of miscalculating insulin, anxiety in social settings, embarrassment when eating in public, avoidance behaviors. There was greater difficulty among those with limited formal education. Some admitted to administrating insulin without calculation. They were tired of arithmetic, of being precise, of the cognitive weight. Others avoided social meals altogether to escape the pressure. Carbohydrate counting was not just nutrition science, it was cognitive load, emotional strain, and a daily anxiety each time they ate. We then decided to observe the burden in real time. During a carbohydrate counting workshop, without any digital support, participants were asked to estimate portion sizes, calculate carbohydrate content, and determine insulin doses. The results were revealing. Portion estimation errors were frequent. Carbohydrate miscalculations were common. And when the portion estimate was wrong, the carbohydrate count was wrong too. And if the carbohydrate count was wrong, the insulin dose was wrong. Very few participants actually were within recommended dosing ranges, and in fact, many tended to underdose. They were afraid. What looked like non-adherence was often cognitive overload. That insight changed everything. We stopped asking, how do we teach carbohydrate counting better? And started asking, how do we reduce cognitive burden without reducing safety? Our minimum viable product began as a response to anxiety. We built the MVP as a structured decision support tool. It was done in several iterations, each time integrating user feedback. We thus improved on how we would log glucose, capture meals, apply personal ratios, and generate nutritional value and dose suggestion. All of this while supporting the thinking process and reducing arithmetic strain. To validate it, we returned to the same meals used in our workshop. Our dietitian and diabetes educators had already computed correct carbohydrate values and corresponding insulin doses for each participant. And these became our reference standard. Participants then used the app to calculate the same meals. With the app, accuracy improved. Calculations aligned more closely with expert-derived values. They hesitated less. Parents looked less tense. The app does not cure diabetes. It does not eliminate responsibility. It does not remove the need for education. It reduces load. And sometimes reducing load changes behavior. But the app is not alone. It exists inside a system with relevant equipment, with therapeutic and nutrition education, with medical and paramedical support, with psychosocial care. Though technology reinforces care, we are aware of its limits. Food recognition is imperfect, portion estimation remains complex, and global AI models do not understand motion dishes. And these are things that we will be catering for in the next phase that is going to start next month. It all started with a question. What if you had a magic wand? And the answer was simple. Make food less threatening. Sometimes innovation is not about building something extraordinary. Sometimes it is about making something ordinary, like eating, feel safe again. This is the beach of Flic-en-Flac in the west coast of Mauritius in the early morning. A reminder that even with diabetes, life should still hold space for calm mornings and moments of peace. I will invite you to follow Tiwan Diams on the social media. Thank you.
Thank you, Didier, and I want to let the audience know that We're not here to promote a single product or a single solution. The reason we brought DDA up here is that this is very much in line with dedoc being present at ATTD. We have had speakers here in the earlier years talking about open source development in closed looping. We have a number of representatives here from the Night Scout community, from Trio. We have had numerous presentations in the past of people doing digital peer support solutions. I see a number of faces here who are amazing at using digital to support their communities, especially Azra, looking at you in India and many, many others here. There is so much going on, and this is just one other example of where what we as dedoc always feel, and this is what I think comes out very well in your presentation, Didier, there is others who are doing carb counting solutions. Many of us here might have seen, looked, and tried them, and I think we all agree that none of them, even by the very big players out there, are really up to the task yet. The difference often between what is coming from, if a solution, whatever its nature may be, is coming from the community versus coming from a commercial player, that, as Didier said, it is more person, community, real-life centered, and you made it very clear the strength of the app is not maybe that you are working on a new algorithm, you're working with your community, and you said it is working within a system, and that I think is typical for many solutions that are coming out of patient advocates with lived experience, eventually trying to find their way into supporting in whichever way through digital means. Didier, amazing presentation, and we wish you all very, very good luck with continuing with your team, with your community to develop this system around what may eventually be an app to help count carbs further.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
We will ask you to keep your questions for the next two speakers. We usually do a Q&A session in the end for everyone together. And we have a second speaker now, Ines from Croatia, with another community-led project that started analog and is slowly making its way towards the digital world. Different approach, but same idea behind, coming from the community, discovering an unmet need. And this time we're talking about sports and diabetes and how to make that more accessible. Thank you, Ines. Go ahead.
Hi. Sorry. First of all, hello to everybody, especially the ones who are here in person, but always, also all of the people who are online. I'm just listening to all of the dedoc voices talking about, especially from now, we have a first presentation about the insulin, we have the second one about food, and the third part of this is actually exercise. So I think these are the three pillars which are quite important for managing diabetes. As you can see, fear, isolation, and lack of knowledge are the things that are always, especially in sport, keeping people outside of sport, especially when after they're being diagnosed, but also when they need to step up in the professional part of their sport. So a few years ago, we started a project, especially from this part of lack of knowledge. We didn't know how to interpret it, all of the research, all of the things that are happening in the world of diabetes, how to put that in that everybody can understand it, that patients, that everybody can understand it and can be focused on managing their diabetes during sport, during all of the exercise and sport activities. What we started is from the patients, we started from the coaches to educate coaches on how to do diabetes, how to train kids with diabetes. And we did that in a little bit different way. We got the funding from the European Commission to do a short, like 3-year project on doing the handbook and the comic book to educate them on very easily and slowly way, but that they can understand it very properly and very understandably what do they need to do. This was done by interdisciplinary team of people. We had around us endocrinologists, we had the experts, we had the diabetes educators, but we also had kinesiologists, sport scientists. We had around that pharmaceutical experts, we had the psychologists, but also athletes, former athletes living with diabetes. We had coaches, and we had the live experience from all of them doing that. And we ended up in having an amazing handbook, which is still available on our website, translated into 5+ languages. But this is mostly for the ones who are just nearly diagnosed and just need to scratch the topic of sports and diabetes while they want to start doing sport. While we were doing that project, we realized that is another problem coming up, and that is the sense of community. That is a peer support that all of the people wants to feel it, especially the ones which was lacking was for the athletes living with diabetes. If you're doing some sport, which maybe is not football, I know that it can be, there is a bunch of different sports that are not football. For example, for me, I was a former water polo player. I didn't know nobody doing water polo with insulin pump, doing that every day, and I didn't know how to manage it. After that, I stopped doing sport. Not only because I didn't know how to manage diabetes, but that was one of the biggest problems why my diabetes wasn't under control. And I didn't know with who to share it, with who to talk, with who to do it, because also the healthcare professionals, sometimes they don't know how to do it, and they don't know how to manage it. So it was my point of view, if I find somebody who is doing water polo, maybe in another side of the world, maybe we can just chat about it, we can just talk about it, and we can see what we can do together different. Maybe there know something that I didn't know or I didn't think of, or they tried something that didn't work for them, but it might be working for me. So we ended up having the app. Having the app that will conclude all of this together. Having the part of education for everybody who wants to do sports and diabetes, to lower down all of the research that are coming up, to make it more understandable for the people living with diabetes, for them to understand it and to know what do they need to do and how they can use it. Besides the education, it is the part of making your own profile, making something to put your interest in, putting your sports inside, and just finding your peers, finding the people who are might be right what I needed at that time, finding somebody who is in the same sport, having the same challenges, and not being alone in all of this. The third part is asking the question and getting the answer maybe from the athletes, but also getting the answers from the experts, from somebody who might know what to do, or give you the challenges or just the motivation to go further and just trying till you don't find the solution for yourself. And the last and maybe the most important part for all of you here is having the experts there, to having that they can all talk about it, that they can share the knowledge, that they can share what they are researching for sharing the results of the studia, of the researches that you are doing with the people who are in your focus the most. And these are people with diabetes, especially in this case, athletes with diabetes. So after all of this, I will invite you to join the DAPS community. And even though if you are an athlete, if you are just supporting, if you are a coach, or you know somebody who is a coach and has the athlete who is living with diabetes, either you are a parent, or if nothing else, the expert in any field of sports and diabetes, We could use your help to build the community and try to reach out. Still, it's not done yet, but it's coming up next month in April 2026. Everything will be online on the sportsanddiabetes.eu and will be shared with dedoc community, and hoping that you will enjoy and be part of it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ines.
And one more thing, yeah, as I said, diabetes doesn't stop. I just had the talk with Harry, and he said like, oh, I wish my diabetes can stop during this presentation, that the pump doesn't start beeping or anything. I said, diabetes doesn't stop. Diabetes doesn't stop during the war, diabetes doesn't stop when you have the problems, diabetes doesn't stop during sports, so just have that on your mind.
Thank you. Ines, another great project coming out of a community-led effort with years of research and work behind it. Just to be very clear, I know that initially the plan was to have it up, live and ready and launched here for ATTD, and as always with tech development, things can get a little bit tricky, but we're just a few weeks away now. And to make it sure, will there be language support, and will it be available for people outside the EU? Because I know it's EU funded, but there's no limits, right?
Yes, there are no limits. Application will be worldwide, and the first languages that we are putting up, it will be Spanish, English, Catalan, Croatian, German, and we are following up with French and Italian, hoping soon.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Again, please, if you have questions, keep them for now. We will get to a full Q&A session hereafter on the different presentations. Next, and already last in line, is Harry Bly from the UK. Up until very recently, he should have done, well, actually, I was thinking when I was sitting here that he should actually do my job, because he's a professionally BBC-trained, World Service-trained journalist, but he will talk about stories that shape diabetes care. So, Harry, take it away. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. For some people, diabetes is something they only encounter through headlines, which are often simplified, sensationalized, and misunderstood. Welcome to Diabetes in the Media, How Stories Can Shape Perception and Policy. My name is Harry Bly. I'm a journalist specializing in constructive storytelling. For the past 6 years, I've worked for the BBC and BBC World Service, and I've recently gone freelance with the ambition of telling more stories about diabetes and health inequality. I myself have lived with type 1 diabetes for 15 years, almost half my life, and over the past year have been exploring ways to tell stories about diabetes creatively, particularly through audio storytelling, and I'll come back to that later. I want to start by talking about where the media sometimes gets diabetes wrong. If you search diabetes online, you'll often see two types of stories: jokes about eating too much sugar and headlines about miracle cures. I think we've all heard these. There are a few common problems that come up time and time again. Sensationalist headlines, these are particularly common in tabloids. Now, recently things have got better. There is more scrutiny, but we do often see dramatic claims based on early research and nutrition studies. Problematic language, terms that imply blame or failure, which can reinforce stigma and misunderstanding. Assumptions and oversimplification. Diabetes is often reduced to diet and lifestyle, or the idea that someone just ate too much sugar. We see this in films, in television series, and unfortunately sometimes even news reporting as well. Missing stories. Some of the most important aspects of living with diabetes rarely make it. The daily cognitive burden, the extra decision making, diabetes burnout, mental health challenges, and the inequality to access to technology and care. And finally, a lack of lived experience. Too often, people with diabetes only appear as a small case study buried deep down inside an article. Journalism loves data, and data is incredibly important. but we also need to hear the voices of people living with the condition. Here are a few examples of headlines which have got it wrong. Sugar fueling Britain's diabetes crisis. Chocolate could prevent diabetes. Or headlines suggesting that a bionic pancreas could end diabetes. They simplify a much more complex reality, and those simplifications can misshape how millions of people who don't understand diabetes learn what the condition is. Now, I don't want to just talk about criticism of the media, because journalism can play a very important role. This is one example, calling out misinformation. This is an article from the Times of London, reporting on deepfake videos using the likeness of the late TV doctor Michael Mosley, very popular in the UK, to promote fake health cures which included supposed diabetes cures and treatments. This kind of misinformation is becoming increasingly common, especially on social media and with the rise in AI, and it's vital that journalists challenge it. Another example is a story that's very close to home for me. This is all about raising awareness of diabetes and what can happen in an emergency. So in 2017, my friend and former colleague Alex Ritson was presenting a live news program on the BBC World Service when he had a severe hypo. Thankfully, the team around him were able to step in and help. There was a 6-minute news bulletin straight afterwards, so he had time to treat this hypo, and the program continued safely. At the end of the program, Alex explained to the listener what had happened, and this proved very, very important. The story quickly spread across the media. As you can see, the BBC reported on itself, which often happens, and a number of online magazines and newspapers and charities reported on it too. And this is what happened afterwards. Alex chose to speak publicly about this experience. He received hundreds of messages from listeners in the UK and around the world offering support. For many people, this was the first time they'd ever heard what a hypoglycemic episode can sound like. Even today, this recording, less than a minute long, is used by doctors and medical educators as a teaching tool to help students understand just how quickly a hypo can come on, in this case, less than a minute, and what it sounds like. This is why storytelling matters. The stories we tell about diabetes shape how society understands it and how seriously it's taken. Ethical storytelling can reduce stigma, increase awareness, and, we hope, influence policy. So, over the past year, I've been exploring this idea through person-focused storytelling. Last November, for Diabetes Awareness Month, Alex and I produced a podcast for the BBC's Global News podcast, celebrating people who've made a positive impact on global diabetes. Instead of focusing purely on data and research, we wanted to put the people behind the work at the center of every story. We spoke to clinicians, artists, athletes, researchers, people making a difference in their own way. So, these are the stories we covered. Leia Laleta Suma, who sat right there, dedoc's very own, whose children's book helps young people understand diabetes, educates kids with it and without it. Professor Partha Carr, who I don't think needs any introduction, who has been instrumental in expanding access to diabetes technology and care in the UK. Sally TM from RuPaul's Drag Race UK, who uses her art and drag to raise awareness about diabetes creatively. Emily Mazreku from the US. She's the one woman behind the type 1 diabetes Barbie. I believe she's the only person in the world whose Dexcom screenshot actually appears on a Barbie doll. And Nathan Kilcourse, who is a teacher in Nottingham in the UK, who turned into a record-breaking marathon runner. Each of these stories shows what can be achieved in the global diabetes community. Better storytelling can reduce stigma, increase awareness among the general public, and inspire policy improvements and hopefully access to technology. The stories we tell about diabetes shape how society and the general public understand it. So finally, what can clinicians, researchers, journalists, people with diabetes, what can they do if they want their stories, your stories, to reach the media? Here's what I wish you to know. First, people-first storytelling, not just data. Like I said, data is vital, but journalists also need the human story. Secondly, what's new? What's the key takeaway? Think here about the missing, untold stories that we mentioned earlier. Third, avoid jargon. We love jargon. We understand it. We need to use accessible language for the general public. Fourth, think about the real-world impact of your work or your project. And finally, with all of these things, we must challenge stigma and misinformation wherever it's seen. We can all have a role to play in shaping the stories the public hears. When we tell better stories about diabetes, it's not just about changing headlines. We can improve understanding, inform better policy, and hopefully improve people's lives. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you very much. And I actually have one question to you because that popped up at the dedoc dinner last night, where we have a dinner where we welcome all the dedoc voices coming to a conference. And it was going on in discussion waves up and down. Do you, as a professional journalist, although you're not in the filmmaking business, but one thing that was discussed quite a lot is why so often in media, in presentations, especially also in films and series, when film, for example, a movie portrays a diabetes episode happening, I think we've all seen that. There's the two keywords that come like, oh, he is going hypo or whatever, and then somebody goes and brings out an insulin pen and kind of, I mean, we all know that's wrong, but is that just because it looks more dramatic or because journalists and filmmakers really get it wrong? What's behind the wrong stories that we see pop up so often that increase the misconceptions and misunderstandings about diabetes, and how to counter that?
It's a great question, and I think it's twofold. I think, firstly, it goes back to those sensationalist headlines from before, you know, chocolate cures diabetes or whatever rubbish the tabloids used to publish. There's that. There's the sensationalist, let's, you know, stab someone with an insulin pen to fix a hypo. I think a lot of it also is naivety, and it's not understanding the condition. It's almost you know, like sort of saying 2 and 2 equals 5. It's keywords: diabetes, insulin. Well, insulin must cure the problem. It's a lack of understanding, unfortunately, which still needs to be targeted.
It would be so much easier if they would just every time come up with a bottle of Pepsi or Coke, right?
Yes, exactly. Sponsored by Pepsi, why not?
All right, thank you, Harry.
Thank you.
And we now have time for questions, comments from you, from our audience. Taylor, I would like to ask you to please join us here as well if somebody has another question towards you and your artwork. Please just come forward to one of the mics here if you want to comment on something, if you have questions about Didier's or Ines's presentation, or to Harry about storytelling and Taylor's art. Regarding Isidian, I've had several conversations with him. If there is a comment, a question, I can try and give some perspective, or we can put you in touch with him if you want to contact him directly afterwards via email or social media. Thank you. And Zoe, first question to you.
Open questions are okay?
Sure.
Everything you all shared is just brilliant, and I'm so happy to be a part of this audience and the community we're in. How can we help each other spread the word about the tools? I mean, we're here. This is a great place to do it. But when we all go back home, what do you think are the best ways for us to share the tools that we're developing in our home cities, home countries? And a follow-up to my own question, what are our biggest problems that we still have yet to solve that are within our own hands to do, just in terms of helping each other within our community get over some of the basic fears that we have, like with T1 diams?
Well, I think that's a question that maybe everybody will want to reach out to. Maybe I'll start with Harry, however, about getting the message out.
Yeah, I'd say almost controversially for me as someone trained in traditional media, I do think in this day and age, social media plays a huge role. I think the online community has certainly for me been completely life-changing, and the reason I'm sat here right now, I'd need a whole symposium to explain the story start to finish, but social media is the key. I mean, it's how I learned about things like this. It's how I met people like Leah. I've learned so much online, and I know there are so many dangers and there's so much misinformation, but I think when done responsibly, I think sharing these journeys, sharing these stories, and sharing these projects online, I think it's the best way, because it is really hard to break, to get a front page spread in a newspaper or a television advert. Social media makes that accessible, so that would be my answer.
And Didier, part of the question was going towards you. You're not ready yet to launch, but how do you plan maybe on getting the story out or getting the news out that your solution may at some time be ready, including the system around it? How do you get people to then know about it, use it, join you?
It's been, we met the first time almost 2 years back at Lisbon, where I was just having ideas what I wanted to do and desperately looking for people who could just guide me where I could get information, where I could get funding, where I could get people that could help in the design or in validating what we were doing. So in fact, the mere fact of participating in those conferences, we meet those people. They're all here. And in the dedoc community, there's so much possibilities, there's so much connections that we make from day one, from around a beer or around a coffee, that ease up things, that makes these connections. Connections, I believe, and networking, I believe, are important things that allow us to bridge gaps. It allows us, for example, I've been seeing the application that Ines is showing, and having ideas how we could have a Creole version for Mauritius or any place speaking that language. And I think that the social media, but even before that, the connection one-to-one that we are having, just walking around, trying to know the persons behind the project as well. It in fact demands our own commitment, our own time to make sure that we know that person, because if we talk about the community, we know everyone because we've been part of their story. We've been part of what they've gone through. We know that, so we're already connected. It's just to know that, so what can we do about that? What can we do more about that? And I think that this is the way I've been doing for the past 2 years, and I think I'm progressing on that field. Hope I answered.
Again, more questions, comments, please just come forward to one of the mics. But in the meantime, Ines, you will be facing an even more difficult question, because I think sharing information within these groups here, within a conference like ATTD, it's a bit like talking to the ones who already are at least aware and coming to a conference like this. This is the easy part, staying within the community. You will have to convince, one of the main aspects that I consider valuable about the app that you're about to launch is that it addresses not just people with diabetes who want to do sports, but it's trying to take the other way around and get coaches and trainers and sports teachers to be more knowledgeable about. Maybe the trigger may be a child in a class or somebody who approaches them, but you will have to reach people who might have almost zero relation with diabetes so far, because those are the multipliers. Any strategies that you are already developing to start launching that and getting trainers, coaches around the world to know here's a tool that can help you in case there is somebody with diabetes that wants to do whichever kind of sport, soccer, water polo?
Yeah,
It's been a challenge from the beginning because the full project actually started from the sport community. It started from the sport clubs. And then we saw the path of doing it together with the IDF Europe and then later on also with the dedoc to make it more valuable lessons if we do it from the diabetes community. And now we need to step back and coming back from the beginning and coming back to the sport clubs and telling them like, now we have the solution for everything that you have been asked for. In our project, we have a few of the sport clubs still being a part of the consortium, and one of them is European Multisport Clubs Association that has 30 clubs all around Europe. The multisport clubs, so they're reaching more than 80 different sport sections in more than 20 countries all around Europe. So that would be one of the strategies of reaching, as we have done it here on this stage from the side of diabetes, but also doing the same thing from the side of the sport community, coming to them and trying to trigger out the coaches who maybe did say no to some of the kids and telling them like, now you don't need to say anymore no, because we can teach you or you can be taught on what you need to deal with and how to do it.
And Taylor, maybe I can continue with that question about how do we get the message out, because you have a very different way, of course, of storytelling. You don't have something specific to promote or a very specific cause sometimes to push. Well, you do right now, the Stigma Summit and the discussions around stigma, but you don't put it in words, you put it in, what did you say, how many pieces of artwork are in New York City throughout the metro system?
There's a lot.
A lot. I heard there was a first piece in Barcelona since yesterday night as well. But what's your approach to, I mean, your pieces, your art doesn't speak in words, it doesn't have something that you read and you know, you find a different language to communicate. What makes that special, and what are you able and how are you able to transport a certain sentiment, awareness, whatever you call it? Advocacy through art is your slogan.
Wow. Some of my work has been described as thought-provoking, inspiring, some say disturbing, but it's pointed to the diabetic community, to people who have that sense of aloneness, that it's out there to welcome people on the street. That is the awareness. My awareness is the surprise that you've stumbled on my work, and that you actually know an insulin bottle, and you kind of smile to yourself where others might not know. And I do make the reference to that we are a gang, and you see a gang spray-painted symbol. If you were in that gang, you'd feel, part of something. So that is my awareness idea behind my work, and my awareness is to get people to see things that they don't normally see. They see a bowl with syringes in it representing Madrid, Spain, and Barcelona, to stop at that graphic and go, wow, what does that mean? Who the hell is not spray painting their name? They're actually putting up insulin bottles that are, to all of us, as iconic as Coca-Cola, to see a Coke bottle. So it comes from that place in sort of a cryptic way, not a major launch around the world, that it's about art and awareness. It's kind of, I like the slow build up and sell from city to city. I've been very fortunate to travel. Most of us are lucky to be here, but in the States as well. Been to every state in the Union except for Alaska, and much of my art and work has been lucky to survive on some of those streets internationally and nationally to continue to make the community smaller.
And one follow-up question, and then you, and then there's one there. One follow-up question. I think when knowing quite a bit of your artwork, it involves often, like on this one, a bottle of insulin that I think everybody here in the room will recognize immediately. But do you think somebody who has no relation to diabetes will see it and just walk by and it doesn't strike them, or?
I've witnessed both, and actually asked a guy to stop and let me take a picture with him, in the art, where he just sat there and stared at it, and I was fascinated by his intrigue with this piece of street art, and I hope it got him to look something up. I'm always trying to make sure you can see the word insulin, so people can take the information from there and go, there must be a reason.
Some translation that us maybe don't need.
Yeah, that, I hope reaches people and causes them to learn more about it, as we've been speaking, preventative diabetes care for people to know more. Again, the victim of diabetes by disguise, many of us have, and just important to sort of slow gather. But shoving, it in people's faces and down their throats sometimes has the opposite effect. So if you're strolling with coffee and you might be intrigued by a piece of art on the street, you may inquire more about it.
And short comment from Ines, and then...
I just wanted to say that when I was in New York, when I saw it, I was just like, yes! Now I finally see it, because I've been following him since I don't know how many years, but when you really see it in the person, it's actually like how seeing the test strips on the street, and you are like, oh, this was someone before me, so I'm not alone. So good job with that. I love it.
Thank you, dear.
Question in the back, please.
Thank you, and thank you, Bastian and dedoc, for bringing all these great voices of the community here. I think you all are doing something really great for all of us, for the whole diabetes community. And I try to do a little bit too, but that's not the point why I wanted to ask something. I have a quick question for all of you, actually. And the question is, in that amazing thing that you do, what is the biggest challenge or maybe a hurdle that you have to overcome or have overcome? And maybe to phrase it differently, if that helps to clarify, if you had a magic wand to change one thing when it comes to, I don't know, regulation or legislation or just, funding, what would you do, or what you have done that helped you get closer to your goal? I hope that makes sense what I'm trying to say.
Didier, if you had a magic wand, it was in your presentation, what would you do?
In fact, that magic wand, I won't say that we have it. In fact, every day that we live, every action that we undertake, every project that we start, it's guided by our passion. It's guided by the objective to change lives. And this gives us the capacity to face challenges. We had so many challenges. Sometimes we don't have funding to pay salaries or to pay salaries on time. Sometimes I've just been 6 months, 8 months wait to get an approval to continue my project. And it's that passion that we have that makes us stay, continue, face it, and continue every day, every single day. We are here because we know we are going to make a difference. We are going to make our children shine brightly, so that's what guides me. I'm sure most of them have something like that as well.
Ines, the magic wand.
The magic wand. I think for me the biggest challenges was, for all my team, was the first one was to find the right people who will do this as same passionate as we have been feeling for it. So to find really the right people who will be here and who you can support to do it. And the other one is actually one maybe a little bit confusing, but not ended up in the diabetes burnout. In all of this, we are facing a lot of, we want to make changes, we want to do it, but sometimes it overcomes us. If we don't have maybe support, if we are maybe taking a lot of it on ourselves, I know that I've been talking with some of you, and I still have from the first project some of the translations of the handbook that I still haven't done it. Not because I didn't want to or because it was just like too much. For me, I took a much bigger step that I wanted and that maybe I could take it. And it's come to something that on the longer stage, I didn't want anyone to happen. And still now, when I'm just facing that problem, which is still not solved, and Anna knows it, and some of the other people here knows it, it's just like bringing that feeling that you still didn't resolve it. So maybe just trying to do step by step and trying to do the takes that you can take by slow steps are not the wrong steps. They're just like going by your pace and being honest with yourself.
I think the biggest hurdle for me in the 15 years I've had type 1 diabetes is opening up and being honest and actually sharing the fact that I do have this condition. I think a lot of people will be able to relate to those feelings of hiding it and lying to people, and the kind of image of hiding in a bathroom stall to take insulin, I think a lot of us can relate to. And I did that for so many years. And I didn't tell it. I was 15 when I was diagnosed, and I didn't tell anyone until I was almost 20. And it all goes back to stigma and a lack of education. I remember learning about diabetes before I was diagnosed, and this was in the curriculum of GCSE biology for any Brits out there. People with diabetes were painted as, I remember the words, frail was a word that was used, and that's just not true. It was such poor education. So for me, if I had a magic wand, I would want to revolutionize education and teach children and adults from an early age what is diabetes, what does it look like, what are the truths and non-truths. Because I think if there was less stigma, I think certainly my teenage years would have been a lot easier. So if I had a magic wand, that's what I would do. It's all about education.
I second Terry on that for sure. If I had a wand, I'd do a lot of things. But I would create more access to everyone who doesn't have insulin in first world countries, let alone countries not as advanced. I myself have been very lucky to exchange artwork for insulin and have people given me tons to support me. Believe it or not, I'm still an uninsured diabetic in the States, so you have to be quite crafty to make sure you stay below 150. And I wish that it was the overprescribed. Friends who've given me insulin have given me 20 pens at a time. And how does that happen where someone's in Gaza right now, fighting for life without access to anything, or a storage or a vault for anyone to come to? It is remarkable. I look at the pens that I've been given, and they're all outdated or close. And you never know whether to gamble with expired insulin or insulin that was by a radiator or something like that. Needles, pens, technology that people, I was a long finger sticker before I got my first Libra. And that was through a friend. It didn't even have to go through insurance and the medical programs that keep people from having the access. So between the over-prescribed and the under-prescribed, I just wish that Somewhere we could meet in the middle, and the rest of the world who needs insulin could have it.
So not surprisingly, sir, to a question as broad, what's the biggest challenge out there? And if you had a magic wand, the answer's very widely. I could just say from a dedoc perspective, this is exactly why, as dedoc, we always say we don't have an opinion. What we do is we work with individuals. We try and find individuals who have whatever kind of project or challenge that they're facing or vision in mind. We try to find the most creative people in the diabetes communities. We are now present in more than 120 countries, and make them, one way or the other, come here to stages like these so that they can share whatever is on their mind, whatever the challenge they face, whatever vision, idea, great plan they have, and we try and support this, whatever it is almost, in the best way we can. So for us, it is not a specific thing. It is making all these multiple diverse voices heard. If I had a very small magic wand right now, I would wave it, and I would wish that Zidian would be sitting right here to get even more exposure, but I hope we can make that true in the future. Next question in the back.
Hi, kind of targeted towards Harry, but all of you. We're increasingly seeing basically misinformation and sensationalist information by people out of our community, for people in our community. How would you go about that?
That's a very good question, and it's something I've seen online. It has to be called out. I think ultimately that's the only way we can ensure that content creators from within the community are being responsible. Ultimately, there is fact and there is fiction. I think it's really important that it's called out by those who have the facts, clinicians, academics. We can all play a part in calling it out. It's very disheartening that there is misinformation from within the community, but yeah, calling it out that's really all we can do. And we've also got to hope that big tech, social media companies, Meta, for instance, X, and TikTok, all of them, much like they tried to do during the pandemic when they had measures to counter COVID disinformation, that should be rolled out across the board for all medical conditions and all health information, including diabetes. Unfortunately, I don't think the social media industry has countering disinformation as their top priority, but they should. So it's up to us to call it out at our sort of grassroots level, but also we do need those people who hold the power, who hold the money, and who hold the tools, the social media billionaires, let's face it. We need them to act as well.
Thank you.
I can just remember when dedoc started out as a chat on Twitter to support people having questions. One of the most critical questions and comments we got in the very early years was, how can you, a group of patients, and that wasn't meant as a compliment, how can you go out there and talk about medical information or how to do this when that happens? You are not trained. And our standard response was, we said, there is magic in numbers. If we have enough strong people out there who are on the good side of things, then if the occasional person who might be spreading something that is misinformation or answer, there were these questions on Twitter and Facebook that, like, I'm eating this, how much should I inject? And there is no right answer to that because the answer is it depends. But there will be the one odd person who will say 17 units or 7 units, and neither is probably right. But it doesn't really matter as long as you have enough voices out there who will immediately spot that and counter that and say, hey, this, So this is why I believe all these online communities out there, wherever they may be, are important in that they bring more people to the table and inform them that their voice matters, and they can be better fact checkers than any Meta or Twitter or X or whatever central can probably ever be. The only fear I have coming to that question is that in these days of generative AI and bots, we might be losing that numbers game because, well, these guys are fast. On the other hand, we know that 10% of the global population has a direct lived experience with diabetes. If we could get 10% of whichever size of community, on average, knowing that these are people living with, we could turn any idea into a law right now, because if you get 10% of the population to vote this way or the other, or to raise their hand, I think we would be the largest political party in the world, the largest voice in the world, and probably still a lot stronger than any social media or bot engine out there. So let's keep on growing. Any last questions? Because if not, I would... Noriko, yes. Professor Noriko Kurani from Japan.
Call me Noriko. Thank you. Everyone's talk was very inspiring. I just wanted to say that, so dedoc is a place that people will gather, people will have information here, and they will go back to their own country, and they will pay it forward. So that's what Bastian started for dedoc. And I was listening to everyone's talk and how you managed to move on in each way. 4 of you are doing different things, but the purpose, our goal is, we're looking at the same goal. And I really felt that listening to you talk will inspire us. So everyone sitting here will go back. I myself will go back to Japan, and I will want to pay it forward. We are gradually starting, and it's more than you imagine. Everyone who will listen to what you people talk will go back to their country and will start paying forward. So I just really wanted to thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you for these kind words. And that is the perfect ending for this year's dedoc Symposium. Thank you all for coming. Thank you for showing up. Thank you, our speakers, plus Azerian, if you're still watching. Thank you for sending your video instead. Thank you for being here. Thank you to our partners making this possible. Enjoy the next 2-3 days of the conference. Do visit us and the dedoc Voices at booth 18B in the exhibition. And this was dedoc. For all the dedoc Voices here, please come forward for a group photo. I'm just getting a little, the community picture. And everybody who wants to be in that and join, feel free to do so as well. Thank you very much. This was the dedoc Symposium at ATTD 2026.